Peace, this Monroe Jr. I'll be giving my commentary right after this video. Peace.
Of Antwon Rose. According to the district attorney, an autopsy report found that Rose was shot in the right side of the face, the right elbow, and in the back, and that it was the wound to his back that killed him. Meanwhile, the East Pittsburgh officer who shot and killed Rose has been arrested this morning. He's been charged with criminal homicide. All of this as we're waiting for an update from the district attorney in just moments. Let's go to our Athena Jones, who is live in Pittsburgh with more this morning. A number of details about how he died, what shot it was that took his life, the account of the police officer that is changing. All of that has just come out. What can you tell us?
Hi, Poppy. That's right. There are a lot of details in this criminal complaint and in the affidavit. The criminal complaint says that Officer Rosfeld, quote, intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or negligently caused the death of Antwon Rose, another human being. And this complaint, the affidavit that is attached to these charges, cites several witnesses, several of whom restate or confirm that Antwon Rose's hands were empty as he fled the police vehicle Tuesday night of last week. The affidavit does say that there was an empty 9mm Glock magazine found in Rose's pocket at the hospital. But what's interesting here is what we're learning from the officer, Officer Michael Rosfeld. He was interviewed on Friday by investigators, and this is what he told them. He said the front seat passenger, who was Antwon Rose, exited the car, and he said turned his hand toward Rosfeld. Rosfeld said he saw something dark that he perceived as a gun. But when investigators asked him again later in the interview, Rosfeld told detectives he did not see a gun when the passenger emerged. When he was confronted with this inconsistency, Officer Rosfeld said he saw something in the passenger's hand but was not sure what it was. He also said he was not certain if the individual who had his arm pointed toward him was still pointing at him when he fired the shots. So those are some of the details we're learning from this affidavit. As you mentioned, Rosfeld was arrested and fingerprinted according to the criminal docket. We also have an interesting question that could come up at this press conference with the district attorney, Stephen Zappala. His spokesperson, Mike Manco, has said on the issue of bail, their office argued vigorously against the setting of bail in this case, citing Pennsylvania law. And so they disagree with the judge's decision in this case to set bail for Michael Rosfeld.
Okay, Athena Jones, thank you very much. Again, we're going to hear from the DA in just moments, and we'll carry it here for you as well. I'm joined by CNN law enforcement analyst, retired FBI supervisory special agent James Galliano. Nice to have you here. There's a lot to take through here, but just the matter of death. We've now learned that it was the shot to his back of this unarmed 17-year-old black teenager that killed him.
Sure. Complex cases, these things always are, and we'll get more information as it goes forward, and hopefully when the DA gives a press conference, that'll kind of clear up some of these concerns that we have. A couple things to stipulate. First of all, you've got a 17-year-old kid whose family's grieving. We get that as a sober situation. Second of all, the police officer, and we'll get into some of the background on him in a second, but the police officer was responding to a drive-by shooting, and within 15 minutes found a vehicle that matched the description that also had some gunshots that had apparently pierced the window on the side of the vehicle. As the officer calls in for assistance and then tries to prone out the three people in the vehicle, which is the appropriate thing to do, two of them take off. Now, there's two court cases that happened in the 80s that are really going to guide whether or not this officer has a leg to stand on. The first was in 1985, Tennessee versus Garner, which is the fleeing felon statute, which basically says, did the officer shoot somebody from behind who was fleeing, who had committed in front of them some type of violent action?
Right.
We don't know if that happened, and there's nothing to say that there is. No account says that happened. The second is Graham versus Connor, which basically says the objective reasonable standard. Would a reasonable person react the way that officer did under the circumstances?
The inconsistency in the statements that this officer has given. Let me put it up on the screen and just read this for you in full from the criminal complaint. Confronted with his inconsistency, Rosfeld stated that he saw something in the passenger's hand but was not sure what it was. In addition, Officer Rosfeld stated that he was not certain if the individual who had his arm pointed at him was still pointing it at him when he fired the shots. That's because he gave conflicting accounts about whether or not Antwon Rose had a gun. Is that problematic?
Those inconsistencies are. Now, being somebody that has been in those type of in extremis situations, meaning life or death situations, I can tell you that your recollections, your accountings in the immediate aftermath are never consistent.
But you say life or death situations. I mean,
Yes.
we've seen the video here. You've got Antwon Rose getting out of the car and fleeing it, not running towards the officer. So what do you mean? What do you mean life or death for the officer?
That situation, whether or not the officer saw something previous, whether when he pulled the car over, he saw there were 2 weapons recovered, and Antwon Rose had a magazine, a pistol magazine on his person. Does that give him the right to shoot him in the back?
No.
We can't say that right now without more facts coming out. Hopefully the DA will clear that up.
Unarmed, but as you noted, had this magazine. Thank you for being here.
Peace, peace, peace. This your brother Monroe Jr. And so we just seen the CNN clip. I love to include their commentary and hear from their perspectives. You know, a lot of white people are always trying to deceptively justify wickedness. You know, white people, when it comes to guns, they have them all the time in front of police. So don't try to pull that madness over on us today. All the time. And don't nothing happen to them. Plus, the only time the officer should shoot someone is if his life is in danger. Right? Not if somebody is fleeing from him. But this particular officer is charged with homicide, but we not only want him to be charged, we want him to be convicted. So I would say to all of those frontline soldiers who are out there fighting for justice, don't get happy because he's charged. Get satisfied when he's convicted. Right? And just to hear the white man on CNN, to hear his madness, man, I tell you. But if that was a young white boy that got shot, they straight to the point when that happened. Oh, he ought to be locked up. You know, woo-de-woo. But when it's one of us, woo, boy, they coming with all excuses. They white-splaining. But I just wanted to update y'all. He's been charged. Hopefully he'll be convicted. If he's not convicted, they not getting away with nothing. The scripture says that God would take the blood from Abel to Zechariah and place it on one generation of our enemies. Meaning that they might think they getting away, but it's a great and dreadful day coming for our enemies. Huh? This your brother Monroe Jr. I'm signing off. Peace.